Horror, my book on the international war on comic books during the 1950s, and how many Western governments turned on comic books, blaming them for the behaviour of their children. The book is available by Milwaukee Publishing or on my author's page on Amazon. Now this one's going to be pretty quick, guys. I recently read some news that one of my favourite museums is about to close and relocate to a new building, with numerous reports claiming this will be a fresh new start for the museum. Now, I understand things must change and science must be updated, but there is also a big chance the world is going to lose a charming display that deserves our attention. Why? Well, not only is it already reported the new building will be drastically smaller, the museum itself is no longer government-owned, but held in trust. This means it's possible people are being hired to make decisions for the future of the collection. Some of these people may not actually have the collection's best interest at heart. Already on their website you can see they're pointing out that with a smaller building, millions of specimens will be shelved. And as you will see, some of the most clever, unique displays will be gone. So with this in mind, I thought it's time Bone Rooms presents its visit to the Milwaukee Public Museum, or the MPM. First opened in 1884, today's version of the MPM is in a 3-floor building with some of the most gorgeous, clever displays you're likely ever going to see. And yes, many of them are an older style exhibit, but damned if they are not fine examples of the Museum of Curiosity display. This is best shown in the Sense of Wonder display in the museum's foyer. A charming little collection of stuff. Cool stuff, ancient stuff, Australian stuff, giant stuff, amazing stuff, and stuff from all over the world. But honestly, look at this collection. Incredible. And yes, the display does contain items from all over the world, but the museum really does try to focus on links to the local Wisconsin region. Now, I will admit, this was all done well before I started filming and narrating my visits to museums. So I filmed part of it and just took a lot of photos. So I've stitched together the best of what you'll be able to see. And I hope you do go and see, because this museum really deserves a look. So you're starting in the foyer, and already by the foyer you can see this is a great display. You then head into the main area, which has that Museum of Curiosity look, and it's just got stuff from all over the place. I really enjoyed it. Now the first big display you find is the MPM's own Torosaurus, which they unearthed in 1981. It's got a lot of great information on the front, and it's talking a lot about the actual specimen, and really one of the most amazing features on the specimen, and you can kind of see it, and this is why I'm talking about clever stuff. In the mirror at the back you can see the skull, and if you look very carefully you can see there's a huge wound in the skull, probably caused by another Torosaurus horn. And what's great is that writing is actually in reverse, because that's through the reflection in the mirror. Clever stuff. You then start at the beginning of time, you head through a cave and how the earth formed, and so it's a very big geology display. Great, but kind of standard stuff, but it's giving you an idea of the kind of standard of the displays. Yes, they're slightly outdated, but they're great. Some of this artwork, again, outdated, but really well done, especially these colours. Imagine how old these images are, especially of the molten earth, and yet still pop. And then you get things like this. This display all by itself is given a lot of space, and while you're standing there, the light suddenly changes. And when it changes, it gives you a completely different look of the same landscape, but at night. And this is what I'm talking about. This place is special and it's clever. The backgrounds of the displays, fantastic. Equal to any in New York, Chicago. I love them. I'll admit I've already kind of stitched together this video that you're watching, and so I'm actually narrating to the video because, as I said, I did not do any of the narration while I filmed. So starting with geology and the formation of the earth, and again, pretty standard stuff. They've got stromatolites, things like that. We start moving through time, starting with the oldest rocks in the world, the oldest life form in the world, and then as you go through this dark kind of corridor, look at the space. All these things are kind of given their own space, and they're not really reflecting into each other, which is one of my pet peeves, as you all know. And you're getting to see some remarkable stuff, and it's not all crowded together. These are wide open displays with only items specific to the thing they're showing. For example, if you're going through the Ordovician, you're seeing trilobites, and these are all, of course, fossils that the Wisconsin area are famous for. Look at this. This is almost like an aquarium. The lighting alone, and that's another thing, I'm going to keep mentioning it, and you're going to hear me say it again and again and again. It's the theatrical lighting of this place, which is just genius. Whoever designed this really put some thought into it, and it's one of the best displays you will ever see. I mean, just the Ordovician Sea, it's huge. And yet the horizon, and when you get close up, all the trilobites, everything is in place. Nothing's dusty, I'll point out, so somebody's getting in there cleaning this stuff. The mottling of the sunlight on the coral reef, fantastic stuff. Crinoids, everything you would want to see in the Ordovician Sea. And of course nearby are the fossils of the creature you've just seen. Now, some of these displays are obviously very small, maybe because there's just not a lot of this stuff found in the local area. But for example, the Carboniferous display, look how well this is made. You've got this image here, and yet look off into the distance behind that salamander's head. You can see the landscape goes off into the distance. It's brilliant. Coming up, we've got the Triassic and Jurassic, and yes, you can see these are older style images and older style dinosaurs. Charming, not very scientifically accurate, and I can understand why they might want to change them out. But the other problem is, these have got character, and these are what people like me want to see. So maybe there's a way of doing both. As we know, they don't have a lot of space. But coming up is the jewel of this display. And bizarrely, it's a bit like a coin, it's double-sided. On this side, we're in the Cretaceous, where we have the famous T-Rex chomping on a Triceratops. At first I thought they were going to be animatronic, but none of these move because these are actually much older than that kind of technology. But don't just listen, watch the background. Who would think of doing that in such a display? The atmosphere in this room, the atmosphere in this display is incredible. I loved it. And opposite this display is all the windows of the fossils. And you've got to look closely. There are things hidden throughout this display. There's small mammals, there's reptiles, there's crocodiles, and here are the fossils of those things hidden away. And here we've got a shot of kind of the gallery where you can get to go up higher and look down on this display. It's just brilliant. I can't keep saying it. I love it, I love it, I love it. But as I said, it's a coin and it's double-sided. So here we move to the other side of the display. You first pass through what looks like a glacier. And again, the lighting is leading the way. We've got the storm going behind us. And then you get this cold blue glow. And this is coming from one of the biggest Ice Age displays I've seen in my life. You start off with all the animals from the Ice Age. Most of these are from the Nebraska region. You know, that's very close to Wisconsin. But if we swing around, before we do that, I will talk about this picture. I got a little bit suspicious about this picture. What do you think? Look familiar? You also enter the glacier. It wasn't just the little side panel where you walk through from the Cretaceous. No, there's a display inside there. And it's full of the fossils and the animals that you would expect to have found in the frozen steppes that would have been Wisconsin at the time. Mammoths, woolly bison, and look at the colours, the very cold blue. And the way you kind of enter and take a bit of a left, that means some of the light from outside doesn't filter this display. Very clever. It keeps these beautiful cold blue lights in this area. But when you walk out, you get the actual fossils. And yes, I know that's a moa, and moas are from New Zealand, but quite recently they have discovered a very early ancestor of the ratites living in this area, at least in the Americas. So something like that may have been here. We don't know. Again, we come back to the light. I've taken this photo, just literally stepping outside of the display and looking back, you've got this intense red of the next display. And yet none of that splashes in on the fossils once you're inside the display, looking at the mammoths and the mastodons and things. What a clever thing. That simple effect changes the entire look of the display. I love the lighting in this display. It's one of the best lit displays I've ever seen. And then we come to a series of how science works, and it shows you the environment that paleontologists are looking through and what the environment would have looked like that they were looking through. And they've got numerous ones of these. There's ones from rainforests. These things don't take a lot of space, and yet what a clever use, really bringing home the difference between scientists in the field and the environments that they either work in or they work on. Just how creative is this museum? If we zoom in on the back of this mural, you can see in the background the T-Rex eating the Triceratops from the display we just saw earlier, tying that whole thing in together. Clever stuff, simple stuff, but very clever. What a fantastic museum. We're going to somewhat leave the prehistoric stuff behind because there is more to this museum. And again, well set out, very clever. They know they don't have a lot of space. The Wisconsin area obviously has a huge native history. So the next display we're looking at is the Native Americans. Knowing they don't have a lot of space, they've created this carousel to show all the costumes. Instead of just having a whole room full of costumes, they've got the one display rotating. It's very clever stuff. Now I want to talk very quickly about this. There is a serious quality to these displays and their background murals, and that's because Carl Akeley, the first person to really create this kind of display, did it for New York and made all those famous New York displays. First did it, I thought, in Chicago's Field Museum. But no, his very first display of a lifelike mural, a lifelike environment with taxidermied animals on display was here at the MPM. Now this goes on to more Paleo-Indian habitation. They've built an entire city, and you walk through this ancient city of the early indigenous and their brick huts and things. And every building is actually a display holding items. It's just really creative stuff and a fantastic use again of space. You walk through the village, but you also walk through the displays containing the items from that village. It's amazing. Now the MPM is also home to one of the most important fossils in America, and it was found just a handful of miles away on a local farm. The Hebior mammoth is one of the largest and most complete mammoths ever unearthed. It's roughly 85% there, but that's not the interesting thing. These fossils show clear signs of butchery. There's cut marks highlighted in various locations on the remains, either on the fossil itself or on the fossils on display around the base of the feet of the mammoth. Now, carbon dating indicates this mammoth died 14,500 years ago. Now, that's quite interesting because that instantly pushed back humans living in this region by over 1,000 years. So it's an incredibly important mammoth. Also, what's interesting is it looks like there's other marks on it from dire wolves that came in, found the dead animal, scavenged themselves a free meal. And just like our Taurosaurus, they're creatively showing you paleoanthropology across the body by highlighting all these wounds and damage. Great stuff. Now there's other displays I really enjoyed. Bugs Alive. They have overblown specimens of various sorts of bugs that you can get up close and personal with. And we're going to end with the jewel of the crown. They've built a 2-story Costa Rican rainforest. You can hear the animals, and as you walk around, massive display showing all the featured creatures and plants that you would find in a rainforest. The glass cabinets themselves, I don't think they're glass, they're probably plastic, have all been slanted to actually make it look like at certain levels that you're seeing dappling sunlight coming just like you would in the rainforest, the spears of sunlight coming through. That's actually display cabinets. So it's 2 stories tall. You walk around the top level, you walk around the bottom level. And then on the side of each one, they've actually got these fantastic displays containing all of the animals. But you also get to see this, because the Costa Rican forest is home to a very strange bird. And that bird is incredibly prehistoric looking, the Hoatzin. And right next to it, they've got an Archaeopteryx I've never seen before. They must have had this created themselves. And it's showing you the prehistoric features of the very first bird and the current prehistoric bird that actually still has thumbs as a chick. And they're making this link between this prehistoric bird and the modern bird that still contains prehistoric features. I know I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. I love this museum. Every display, they somehow creatively put a little twist into it that is highly thought out and very well done. And we're about to lose this museum. So folks, if you're in America and you're on holiday and you're anywhere near Milwaukee, I suggest you head to the MPM because it is one of the world's great museums. And that's it. And hopefully I will be pleasantly surprised that they've kept a lot of this amazing stuff or kept the creative energy going. Other than that, that's it for today. So remember, I write for the Prehistoric Times magazine. So if you're wanting to read the latest in the Prehistoric Times, why not grab a copy? Otherwise, I'll talk to you later.